Well, thank you, Jim, for that extraordinarily generous introduction. So, class of Buena Vista University, class of 2009. Well done. Congratulations. This is your big day. And thank you very much for the invitation to come and be your commencement speaker today. The reason I've been invited, I think, really boils down to some shared history between BVU, your institution, and Mayo Clinic, the institution I work for. I'm just going to spend a few moments telling you something about that relationship, which really arises from the philanthropy of Harold W. Siebens, before I get on with the commencement address. So Harold Siebens was he was born in Storm Lake, Iowa in 1904, and he spent much of his childhood here. His parents moved away, but he came back to visit his grandparents every summer. And then eventually he came and he ran the Bargain Basement, which was a store on Lakeshore Drive, and eventually then moved away and worked with his father to build the third largest sporting goods mail-order company in the United States. Now, his father then died. His father was actually alumnus at what was then Buena Vista College. And Harold, in 1948, sold the business for about $58,000. And because of health problems and some family issues, he then went off on a journey with his 5 children. And he traveled up the newly built Alcan Highway, which had been built through Canada to Alaska. So he went by road. And on the way there, he became very interested in the oil prospecting that was going on in Alberta. And so on the way back, rather than pass on through, he decided to take up residence in Alberta, where he started buying up land and buying the mineral rights to that land. And he turned out to be very good at identifying the land that the oil prospectors wanted before they got there, so he could sell it on for a huge profit. And he became a very wealthy man. And in 1979, the Siebens Oil and Gas Company was sold for $340 million. And that same year, 1979, Harold Siebens was awarded an honorary doctorate here at BVU. And that meant an enormous amount to him. He was very proud of the association with this university. He'd never finished school himself. And the following year, in 1980, he made, on a per capita basis, the largest philanthropic gift that had ever been made to any educational establishment. And it was that philanthropic gift to BVU that was used to build the business center here and a number of other things. He also, around that time, gave a major gift to Mayo Clinic that was used to build a medical education building there, the Siebens building. And then in 1989, he died. And at the time of his death, the Siebens Foundation was formed because he left a lot of money to this foundation. He had a passion for funding education, and he wanted students to be inspired to be entrepreneurs. That was his real passion. So anyway, after his death, you know, the lighthouse was built here on the shore of Storm Lake in his memory. But also, both BVU and Mayo Clinic have continued to benefit greatly from the philanthropy of those two organizations. My research at Mayo Clinic was very, very heavily funded by the Siebens Foundation. I wouldn't have been able to do what I've been able to do there without that support. And then, as you heard earlier, the Siebens Foundation gave a $13 million challenge grant to BVU. And the challenge was that BVU had 13 months to raise an additional $13 million for the Estelle Siebens Science Center. And if they failed to meet that target, they wouldn't get any money. And the alumni of this university, virtually all of them actually contributed to that fundraising effort. So you have an extremely loyal group of alumni for this university, which speaks volumes. So the relationship between Mayo and BVU really was sealed at that time because I was invited down to the dedication. And at that point, I discovered BVU. I discovered that there were incredibly smart, enthusiastic students. There was an extraordinarily dedicated teaching faculty. The place was beautiful, it's organized perfectly, and the technology just blew me away. The teaching aids and the teaching technology, the electronic systems here made it seem like the Dark Ages back at Mayo Clinic. And so subsequent to that, we've been developing working on building a relationship between Mayo Clinic and BVU. We've had a number of students come from BVU to do summer internships at Mayo Clinic, and things are going well. So enough history, back to today. So today is your big day. It's a really important day. You know, in life we recognize births, marriages, and deaths as being the big events. But I think commencements should be added to that list. You know, a commencement is a day when you have worked for 4 years towards getting this qualification, getting these letters that you're going to have after your name from now on. And it's like a marriage. You're being married to those letters, and they're going to change your life. They're going to change, they're like an admission ticket, an entry pass into new things that you can do, whether it be higher education or whether it be jobs that you want to get into. It's going to make a big difference, and it'll be with you forevermore. And if you have a dream or a goal, as Jim was alluding to, this is a very important step on the pathway to achieving that goal. And if you don't yet have a dream or a goal, this allows you to dream dreams that you couldn't dream before. So it really is a very big deal. So what I'm going to do as your commencement speaker today is just give you 3 pieces of advice that really are drawn from my own life. There are things that I think may help you towards achieving whatever goals you do have in life. So we'll start with the first, which is to never give up. Never give up. To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield, as Lord Alfred Tennyson put it in his poem Ulysses. Now, you're graduating at about the worst time possible. I think of all the BVU students who've ever graduated, there's never been a worse time. You know, we've got financial meltdown, the job market is terrible, there's rising unemployment. But as my mother, who, as you know, is here today, once said to me, and by the way, she's in her 90th year at the moment. She's come over from the UK to visit us at Mayo Clinic, and she agreed to come down here today to give me moral support, because this is my first commencement speech. So, thank you. So she always said to me, Stephen, life is a problem-solving exercise. And without problems, there'd be no joy in life. And if you think about it, it's true. It's certainly true for me. What gets me out of bed in the morning is the problems that I've got to deal with during the day or during the week. And without problems, there's really nothing. That's what we do in life. We go through solving problems. And so you can take a positive view on this if you really try hard. You know, it's not just a millstone around your neck. It's a challenge. It's a challenge that you really can rise to and you really can overcome. But you've got to carry with you some qualities. You have to be persistent. You have to be resilient, because you will get knocked down and you will have disappointments, and you just have to get right back up. And you have to be tenacious. And those are key qualities that you need to carry with you as you go through life trying to achieve your dreams. I'll give you an example from my own life when I had to show some resilience. Very early on, after I graduated medical school, I had decided at medical school I wanted to cure cancer with viruses. And I was pretty committed to that. But of course I had to go through my residency for my first year and my fellowship jobs. So I applied for residencies in surgery and medicine, and I had a lot of interviews. And at the end of those interviews, I was not offered a position. And I was devastated. I just couldn't understand what I'd done wrong. And so I came home and I talked to Janie, my wife, about it. And She said, I can't understand it. Your CV's really good. Tell me what's going on in these interviews. So I said, well, I go in and we introduce ourselves to each other, and then they ask me some questions, and they always get to asking me, so what do you want to do with your life? And I tell them I want to cure cancer with viruses. And she said, Stephen, you are so naive. If you go for a surgical residency job and they ask you what you want to do, you say, I want to be a surgeon. And if you go for a medical residency, you say, I want to be a physician. She said, they probably think you're crazy. And also, it's a fundamental rule of job interviews that you actually show an interest in the job that you've applied to do. And so that turned out to be really good advice, actually. And I thank Janie for that. Okay, so the second piece of advice is that you really need to have a sense of urgency as you go through life to achieve your goal. Don't procrastinate. Don't leave it till next year or the year after, or think, oh, I'll get around to it sometime, because if that's your approach, you will not get there. And life really is very short. You know, ask your parents and grandparents. They'll tell you it flies by. You know, for the younger ones in the room, your working life is probably going to be 40 years at the outside. It's going to be less for the people who are graduating later in life. And that's not a lot of time to try and achieve your goal. So do not procrastinate. Carpe diem is the saying, seize the day. Make sure that you just go for it now and you don't hang on and wait for years to pass by. There are too many people who've retired and who say, well, you know, I was always thinking I'd do this or that and I never got around to it. I mean, many people think they're going to write a book and they never do. So don't let that happen to you. I became aware of, you know, this problem of trying to get to your goal in a certain period of time, because you can call me grandiose if you want, but when I was at medical school, I did actually have two goals. One was cure cancer with viruses, and then goal number 2 was pollution-free transport at greater than 100 miles per hour. So I was thinking, okay, 20 years for the virus thing and then 20 years for the pollution-free transport should nicely round out my life. Well, I'm 27 years into it now, and I'm afraid I finally had to admit that the pollution-free transport thing is not going to be my problem to solve. So any of you out there who are still looking for a goal, that one's up for grabs, so you can have it. Okay, so number 1 is never give up. Number 2, seize the day, have a sense of urgency. And number 3 is to take the opportunities that come your way. Opportunities will come your way. And they may not look like opportunities. In fact, virtually all opportunities do have a downside to them, as well as an upside. And if you really know where you're trying to get to in life, then you'll understand that it is an opportunity and you'll be able to react accordingly. But you may have to take the rough with the smooth, and you may have to be bold to take that opportunity. And again, the example for me, I had a number of opportunities that I took, but the biggest one was when Mayo Clinic called me. And I was working in Cambridge at the time. They called me and said, we've got a major opportunity here. We'd love you to come over and build a virotherapy effort and take viruses into the clinic to treat cancer patients. So you'd have thought that that would be perfect for me. But at the time, I was living in Cambridge, in a village south of Cambridge. I had a great job. We had 4 young children, aged 3, 5, 7, and 9, all very happy at school there. Janie, my wife, was working in London. She had a really good job. We had loads of friends. Our family was in the UK. So what Mayo Clinic was saying was, give all that up. Drop your friends, drop your family, drop your job in Cambridge, move house, bring your children across to America. And it was a really tough decision. It really seemed like an opportunity with a big, big downside. And I talked to Janie about it. She came over to have a look at Rochester, and she came home and she said, you know, if this really is what you want to do in life, then we've got to just go for it. And so that's what we did. And we've never looked back. It's been absolutely fantastic, but it's a tough thing to take those opportunities when they come. Sometimes you have to make a bold move. Okay, so that's my advice. That's the end of the advice. Never give up. Have a sense of urgency, seize the day, and take the opportunities that come your way. So before I wrap up here, I just want to say one more thing, which is, as you go out from today with this new qualification and you're feeling triumphant, don't forget the people who helped you get here. Don't forget the teachers and your friends and your family and your parents. Don't forget all the support that they gave you along the way. And don't forget that they are so proud of you today. They could just burst. And as you go forward in life, whenever you get the opportunity to pay back some of that, do so. Whenever you can repay some of the help and support that you were given, make sure and do that. So when you go out this evening to celebrate, as I hope you all will, don't forget that it's their day too. And with that, I'll finish and we can continue with the proceedings. Thanks very much.